What's up dogs, it's Nyctopluvo, and I love Silent Hill 2. If you haven't had the opportunity to play through Silent Hill 2 yet, treat yourself and give it a playthrough, but I'll be talking about the game in full detail in this video, so if you don't want it spoiled for yourself, I suggest clicking off now. But without any further ado, here's what I love about Silent Hill 2. So first off, let's just talk about our boy over here, the most recognizable Silent Hill character ever probably, Pyramid Head. And I just love how at the beginning of the game he kind of just has this looming presence. Just look at him, he's just sitting there looming. And when you finally come face to face with him, you're like, alright, now it's time to take down this big bad guy that's just been looming the entire game so far, only to find out he's unkillable, which is a truly horrifying experience which you don't get in many games. And to me that's just really cool, and it just really turns into a battle of survival. Then later in the game, when you see him in the hospital and he chases you through the hallways in the basement, you know fighting him isn't an option, so you just run because you know there's no other way, because as you learned earlier, he's unkillable, and he's just a really unique enemy. I just wish other survival horror games had enemies to his caliber. But aside from Pyramid Head, the game is also filled with other great enemies, like for example the first enemy you encounter, the Lying Figures, which the first one you encounter, by the way, won't kill you, so I just sat there and stared at him like, oh, what you gonna do, dog? Square up. But I also just love how they have this super fast crawl run thing when you knock them down, and it's just very unsettling and unnatural. And then we also have the iconic nurses, who are way scarier than the nurses in Silent Hill 1, and I love it. And one of the cool things about the monsters too is that they all symbolize like parts of James' life, like the leg monsters and the nurses are symbolizing his lust for his wife, and the Lying Figures are symbolizing him feeling constrained, and of course Pyramid Head is like his own personal devil. I also feel like the characters all symbolize parts of James too. I have like a couple theories, but they're more kind of like ideas and not so much whole thought out theories, nothing really concrete, but I think all the characters might be figments of James's imagination. The only character I believe might actually be real is Angela, but I still do have some thoughts on her as well. But first, if any of the characters aren't real, it's definitely Maria, because she seems like she's everything James loved about Mary, almost like she's a flawless version of Mary. Maria is never seen with any of the other characters, and none of the other characters ever acknowledge her existence. At one point in the game, you and Maria chase Laura to the hospital, but at no point does Laura ever acknowledge seeing Maria, even though she allegedly ran right past her on her way out through the bowling alley. And also, if you pay attention, there are many clues that link Mary and Maria as like one person. Like for example, when you go to the hospital at a certain point, Maria feels sick and lays down, kind of like how Mary was sick, perhaps, maybe. And when you try to leave the hospital with Maria, Pyramid Head chases you out and kills Maria just as you're about to escape, and I feel like that might be some symbolism for James feeling like Mary would never leave the hospital. Then we see Maria later in the game in a jail cell, which this part of the game kind of just seems like we're diving into the insanity of James's mind, because we keep diving deeper and deeper into these holes, and it's also kind of like a prison. And I believe that's probably because James feels like a prisoner of his own mind. But anyway, going back to Maria, maybe she's in a prison cell because James feels like the hospital is keeping Mary prisoner. And then we have the part at the end of the game where the two Pyramid Heads execute Maria, which is probably symbolizing James pulling the plug and letting Mary die. And finally at the end of the game, we see Maria again, and she pretty much says that she's the best parts of Mary and that James shouldn't want Mary because he has her. And she turns into an actual representation of Mary in a hospital bed and then fights you. Now, unlike Maria, I have fewer examples for the rest of the characters not being real. I'd like to think that Laura is a representation of the daughter James and Mary might have had, but I don't really have anything to back that up. However, Eddie seems like he's a representation of James's insanity. Like, when you first see him, he keeps saying over and over again that he didn't kill the guy in the other room, kind of like how James is denying that he killed Mary for like most of the game. He's also one of the only characters you see in the prison part of the game, which I said earlier seems like it's James going deeper and deeper into his own mind, going insane. And in this part of the game, Eddie is going insane and he tries to kill James, and it's kind of like James is battling himself. And speaking of James battling himself, it seems like in that noose puzzle that James is getting real comfortable with those nooses, which might mean that the death of Mary had him on the verge of suicide. Finally, we have Angela, who might be the only character I actually believe is real, because it seems like she has her own story going on. However, she could be also a representation of Mary as well. At one point in the game, she gives you a knife, which she was going to use to kill herself, and maybe that's symbolizing her putting her life in your hands, similar to how Mary's life was in James's hands. And maybe the bed monster thing you fight later in the game is how she perceives James. In the last cutscene, you see her, everything's burning, and she's like, oh, you see it too? It's always like this for me. And maybe that's symbolizing Mary's pain. And she's last seen going up a set of stairs, which might be like the game's way of being like, oh, she's going up to heaven. However, it does seem like she could have her own story going on with her battling an abusive father. Before we talk about the ending of the game, I just wanted to throw in a couple small little things that I loved about the game, like the fact that it tested me on my Disney princess knowledge, because Silent Hill knows that I might look hard on the outside, but I got a soft interior. Also, I love that there's one jump scare in the game, because Silent Hill is known for like creating unsettling environments, but not doing cheap jump scares or anything like that. And when you go knocking on that bathroom door, you'll be scared shitless when you like walk away and there's just a scream. Is it cheap? Yeah, but did Silent Hill 2 earn it? Oh yeah. Now finally at the end of the game we get the reveal that James killed Mary and it's tearing him apart inside. Then we get a little confessional scene between James and Mary explaining why he did it. And then at the very end we get the final letter read to us by Mary that she sent to James, and it's just very heart-wrenching to hear, and you can just feel the tears building up as you're listening to it. And then that final line is like read, and it's just like bam, there it is. How did that feel? Just waterworks, just waterworks everywhere. Your freaking shirt is drenched, your pants is drenched, everything's drenched. You're just fucking crying like a baby. Guys, go ahead down in the comment section below and let me know what you loved about Silent Hill 2, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.